Hey everyone, thanks a lot for joining in for the third episode of Hack It with Sid. As you already know, the session for today's discussion, or maybe the topic of today's discussion, is when startup intersects with community goals. And this is a kind of a topic which I can relate a lot because I've been working in this space for quite a few years now. But today we have Cherish Santoshi with us, and he's the person who is more experienced around this space with respect to startups, communities, DevRel, and whatnot. So who can be better person to to seek guidance for in any of such domains. So we will start with a formal introduction or maybe a general introduction. So I would like to ask Cherish to go ahead first.
Hi, Siddharth. Nice to meet you. I like I've been into digital space for about 7 years now. I started working as a Google Student Ambassador in 2013. 2013, and after that, I went on to lead the GSA club itself. Post that, I worked with a lot of I started my own startup that ran for like 5 6 months. We made about 5 6 lakhs worth of business without spending anything on marketing. Then I worked with Amazon for about 2 years or so. Post After that, I worked with Hacker Earth for a year and a half. I was a program manager there, and that's where I kind of developed a lot of relationships with developer communities. I built a lot of programs for them and for the clients who were interested in developer communities. And now I'm heading the community vertical at SAWO Labs, which you're a part of.
Yeah, definitely. So SAO is definitely on top of everything, and we have seen you contributing to various student tech communities and communities in general. So how did this all started? Where did you got this motivation? As you said, you were involved with different communities in your early high school days and college days as well. So what was the motivation when you started all of this thing?
Frankly, like in 2013, 14, DevRel and communities weren't necessarily like a big thing in India. Like only few companies were doing it. I think so. I was a part of Google Student Ambassador and Google community in general. They had a lot of clubs here in North India, GDGs, GBGs, which were Google business groups. There was Google groups for education institutes or teachers. So I was involved in a lot of them. No, I wasn't necessarily looking out for a career. I think I just contributed because I really like the space. I never thought like this would boom the way that it has today. Uh, but I think just the inherent need of doing something for the community came in naturally. I never really questioned it, and it's still there. And just like organically grew. And today, you see there's a lot of buzz in community careers, devil professionals. Every company is hiring. There are head of communities in like a lot of companies now. So organically grew. I think I just reached where I reached, just not by thinking about it really. As crazy as it may sound.
Yeah, fair enough. And also, like, after your college ended, after you graduated, how did you get into such job roles? Were there any like predefined steps for you, or like you just diverted from all this college communities directly to the industry? How was that transition like?
Hmm. So I'll give you like a general view of what usually happens, and then and also relate what happened with me. So a lot of people who kind of get into developer communities are either looking for validation of their concepts or whatever they're trying to do. If you're a part of, like, say, React community, you have built something that you want to validate.
Hmm.
Or two, you either looking for appreciation, which means that you built something very cool and you don't have the people around you who will appreciate what you've done. So you join a robotics club where people like you like, oh, what a cool robot you've built, right? And that's the second reason. The third reason is the learning itself, which trumps everything, right? And like communities, we're looking at communities in a very narrow sense. And I keep saying that communities are like an extended identity, right? So even if you look at it in your college life, you learned more from your peers and faster than your peers, efficiently than your from your peers than probably you did from your teachers. At least that was the case in my life. Which means the third part, which is learning, has been facilitated by the community very organically, and we're
Yeah.
so used to it, and that we move towards community for learning as well. So appreciation, validation, and community and learning is why people usually get into communities and build in it. I went on it because I think I come from a tier two college, so I wanted to kind of get some recognition, which is kind of similar to appreciation of what my skills were. And I got a chance to work with a brand like Google, which was a big thing when you're in college.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you later you realize, like
Yeah.
brands come and go or whatever. But in college, it was a big thing for me. So I capitalized an opportunity and I gave it 200% or 1,000%. I gave everything that I had.
Hmm.
And that kind of, and as I keep saying, right, you get from a job what you give into it. So
Hmm.
I organically gave a lot to that community role that I was leading, and hence that started developing my skills.
Got it.
And that's how I started, moving from one community to another.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for letting us know. You told us about the basic idea which you have up in your mind about the community, like you said, extended identity, and what kept you going along the way of your journey with respect to community. So you have been around like almost for 7 years in this space, DevRel space. So what are your like go-to learning tips which you would like to share with us? Like your experience matters over here at this moment of time. So what are the things which you have learned along the way of your journey?
Oh, 7 years does sound a lot. I mean, fair enough. So, I mean, the learnings are pretty much similar, but they also like the learnings will get nuanced if you dwell into what kind of community you're in.
Hmm.
I think you can't be necessarily be a great community professional if you don't really care about your community really from your heart. Like
Hmm.
if you think that if you honestly feel like you can save somebody's 1 hour also in a day, and if that's a constant feeling, you have what it is. Um, I don't. I think a lot. Like one thing I've noticed in a lot of community professionals, especially program managers at like MNCs, is that they're all very well versed and very thorough with their concepts. But if you don't have empathy, I don't think you can build the community that you necessarily want to.
Hmm.
And if you don't have the empathy, you will stop caring sooner or later, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, this is a part of your job. And then if you look at it from a monotonous job angle, it's not something that is sustainable. The second thing which I keep telling about, which I in fact discuss a lot with community leaders, is that you you need to have a very strong vision, and
Hmm.
that vision needs to propagate everybody in your community. So if you have a community of 100 people, and if I wake them up in the middle of the night and ask you, hey, you're a part of XYZ community, what do they believe in? All of them should be able to answer,
Yeah.
right? It should be that strong. Because if they don't believe in what they're contributing, they'll fall out. So you need to believe as strong as you can, and then you make sure that everybody else believes and kind of buys your vision too.
Definitely, that's a very great valid point, I would say, because it's really important for not just community leaders but also community members to understand what the actual mission and vision uh, is for the community to get existence. In this world where like there are thousands of communities out there, small to big. So it really matters at the end of the day, and having a clear mindset is definitely a point over there. And also, let's talk about more with respect to what our today's topic of title of discussion is. It's like startup and community. How does that correlate in a way? How does you know uh, any community leader or maybe a startup founder can think in a direction that can help them enhance the community culture, or maybe in other way as well. So, what do you think? What is the intersection between these two words, that is startup and community?
Fair enough. Okay. So let me tell you what's the definition of the community first of all. And then if you're a startup and if you're thinking of building a community, are you really considering building a community, or are you thinking of building a brand with a lot of people?
Hmm.
Most of like some brands confuse community with a brand, and then they think that a lot of people following the brand is a community. That's
Hmm.
not necessarily. Okay, so if you're a startup, right, initially what would happen is that you would have a community, and let's say if you're a startup, you would probably put that in your moat, right, which is not necessarily like the driving skill or driving factor of your business, but like a cool thing or like a very unique thing or something to have as in your startup, which makes you more valuable than others. Now, while that was how, that was the scenario why community started,
Yeah.
because let's say if you and I have companies, right, and I have 100 people who believe in what I do versus you have two customers, I am more valuable because these 100 people will sooner or later get me more customers. That's not a problem.
Yep.
That's more. Now, what has started to happen is that people have started realizing that communities are not necessarily just moat, but community can lead to growth also. So that's a strategy called community led growth. Now, where does your community help you grow? Okay. So the first of all is obviously, like I said, if I have 100 people, it helps me. Let's say what 100 people who interact with each other. Now, the difference between a brand and a community is that community interacts with each other. The brand is there is one voice and 100 people in the audience. But if you really want to build a community, enable these 100 people to talk amongst each other, and you moderate that conversation. Now, if you were to build a community of 100 people, the kind of values that you can get, or the feedback, the impact that you can get as a business is one, you can get a feedback on where you're trending. So if you're a
Yeah.
product, you can get where your product is headed. You can use them for dissemination of your content. You can use them for adoption of your services and product,
Hmm.
and you can use them to like organically advocate about your company. All of these things, if you were to do this without communities, first of all, not sustainable. Two, costs way too high. Three, it's very short term because if you were to do it from a marketing route, you would burn money. It'll stay relevant for a while. After that, there is nobody to advocate it. It'll die down,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
having that as getting that done from a community makes a ton of sense. So and those are some factors where community can lead you to growth.
Definitely, fair enough. And these were like points which really gets missed out sometime. And for example, community leaders or the one who runs the community miss out on very, very much of it, I would say. And at the same time, it really becomes important for understanding what are the startup goals and are you looking for creating a brand out of it or not. And that's a very well, put it point as well. And for example, there are multiple kinds of a startup, right? It always need not to be around developer communities, right? So what do you think, apart from developer communities, do you think that general community can be a good way of going ahead if not a developer community?
Of course, I mean, like a lot of my friends are into community building, and as a development professional myself, also, I learn more about community building at, at times than you would think, right?
Hmm.
My learning is not necessarily developer relations.
Hmm.
That is just a subset of community. It makes a lot of sense for having a community based on whichever brand you are, because the benefits that I told, all of these are like industry agnostic, right?
Hmm.
Adoptions, dissemination of content, advocacy of your brand, and feedback on your product, service, or like idea. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Hmm.
You should do it anyway. Uh, I know. So there is a fundamental need for everybody to feel belonged, right? Like if you were to ask a stranger, hey, who are you? They'd probably say their name, and if were to ask, okay, which community do you belong? That may sound like a weird question at first, but if you like try further, they'll probably say, I am so and so. I am from I'm a Portuguese, or I don't know. I'm from a developer community. I'm Brahmin, or they'll say some religion sect or whatever,
Yeah.
because they feel they belong there. They have a lot of values constant with them, right?
Got it.
And if you can generate those values as a brand, and if you can make sure people tie their personal values to your brand's values, you have a community, and that comes from any industry.
Hmm. Definitely, and that's great way of understanding both of like differentiating actually the DevRel and the community altogether. Just managing the community and understanding where you are coming from, what is your mindset, and as you said, when asking a person what community you belong to, that is the moment when you understand what is the mindset and other stuffs as well. So that's a great point. And also, as you know, I'm quite involved with hackathons communities as well. So I wanted to know your perspective with respect to hackathons as well. I know you have been in Hacker Earth and worked with m- like number of hackathons I can't even imagine, right? And worked with developers, billions of developers around the world and whatnot. So you are the person who have experienced the hackathon in a real sense. So what do you think? What are the future of hackathons or how developers can take most out of it?
Okay. So yeah, when I was in Hacker now has I think 5 million developers. While I was there, I think they were about 4.5, right?
Hmm.
So I've worked with like a community of 4 million developers, and I worked with over 120, 140 hackathons in my span there, maybe 100 plus. Um, One of the things that I keep a lot of hackers don't necessarily know is that whenever the jury is judging a hackathon, they're not looking at you as a developer. They're
Yeah.
looking at you as a founder, right? And if you so you might think that you're entering the hackathon and your tech is like the actual thing, like it's the thing, it's where every value is centered on. It's not.
Yeah.
We're looking at it from a product center point of view, and you're the founder. And if you're a founder who only speaks tech, then probably you can't grow the business or the product because it requires design, marketing, business plan. Okay, that seems to be missing with a lot of developers right now. Get some business sense, and if you can't get it, and if you think you need lack that, have a diversified team.
Yeah.
Build with people who have those skills like marketing, design, business. Right. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll just briefly touch on the things that I find like deeply missing, right? So the first thing is think like a founder. The second thing is please make your pitches very relevant and very crisp. Do not write things which people already know.
Yeah.
Sometimes these people will take your pitch and forward it to jury someday or the other, even after your presentation is done. Some of these presentations will be looked at phone. Unfortunately, that is the case. You might think that everybody is very serious sitting in front of a computer. Some may look at it on their phones. Okay, so if I'm looking at something on my phone, I don't need a lot of text. I need
Yeah.
infographics, I need numbers, I need exact impact. I have done something that brings the efficiency from X to Y with Z% of improvement month on month or whatever. Give me
Yeah.
those kind of metrics. Okay, that's the second most important thing that I want. Okay, now the third thing, which I will say from a business point of view, not from a tech point of view or developer point of view, is that hackathons are the first step that business where products are being made and shipped.
Yeah.
So if you're a founder or a business or a VC and you're sitting in a hackathon, it's the first thing that like it's whenever a product comes out in the market, very likely or there is a good chance that it will come out from a hackathon,
Yeah.
right? So from a business standpoint point of view and a founder or VC point of view, they're looking at businesses that they can either acquire, work with, or fund. So look at as if you're a business, just look at these, catch them early, find them in their hackathons, fund their products, build with them, have them on board because these are people who know how to solve real world problems very quickly.
Yeah.
And these are
Definitely.
things that every business either knows or should know.
So true, I can't agree more on that. These were like, if even I have experienced the same thing, and when I used to be a hacker in my early 2019, I used to focus on such things as well, and then lately realize what you actually, presented right now. And definitely, when one follow tries to follow such way of, approaching and having such a mindset while participating in hackathon, it really helps as well. And yeah, can't agree more on that. And also, we are like on time as well. But any ending notes you would like to share with our viewers? Anything, any general tip for their career, for students if they are just graduating or something like that, how they can take most out of their time in college?
Hmm. Okay, so